What I'm about to tell you is the fascinating story of Phil, who was born and raised in the Coney Island area of Brooklyn, New York. Now, what Phil accomplished in his life was absolutely amazing, considering that he dropped out of high school at 16, had no real goals in mind until shortly after his 18th birthday when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. He enlisted in the Army, served as a paratrooper before being shipped to New Guinea with the Army Infantry Division. It was there that he was wounded, sent back to the U.S. only months before the war ended. Now, within a year after being discharged with a Purple Heart and with no immediate job prospects on the horizon, he went to North Carolina to visit his cousin, who introduced him to a woman he married. Her name was Nancy Radovich. Now, Nancy insisted that her new husband not only finish high school, but then go to college and all the way through to getting his PhD. That process took 16 years, and during those first 4 years, 2 children came along. In 1962, he finally received his PhD in geology from the University of Arizona. In 1966, after a few years of being a consultant geologist, he was hired to teach geology at the University of Redlands in Southern California. In 1977, teamed with one of his best friends who was also an artist, the two created a newspaper feature that had a devoted following of readers for nearly 25 years and appeared in 80 newspapers at one time. While several artists came and went, the feature Our Fascinating Earth became not only a fun way for him to display his knowledge, but resulted in 3 published book versions of stories from the feature and his Sunday column written in conjunction with his wife. Now, the rest of the story. On February 4, 1968, an event happened in Redlands that had a huge impact on Dr. Philip Seff's life. And 50 years ago, I recorded a phone conversation with him about that event. Now, rather than me tell you the story, let me have Philip Seff tell you the story in his own words. Here's Dr. Philip Seff.
Well, in the late 60s, I was professor of geology at the University of Redlands, and at that time the Air Force had established the famous Condon Committee at the University of Colorado, which was called the University of Colorado Air Force Investigation of UFOs. And they had established what they called the Early Warning Network, in which I was appointed to represent them in this part of the country here. And at that time, a UFO came over Redlands, so we established a committee at the university, a team of scientists, and we investigated it. And we interviewed close to 100 people that had actually seen it. As a matter of fact, one of the committee was Professor of Art, and he reconstructed the thing, made a painting of it based on witness interpretation, and it was, according to the witnesses, it was supposed to be quite accurate.
Was there ever any evidence as to the existence of a spacecraft or beings of an extraterrestrial origin?
Well, there is a tendency to lean towards that explanation or hypothesis among scientists nowadays, because we can't explain these things away by natural phenomena, and although it's certainly far from proven, there is a tendency to lean towards an extraterrestrial hypothesis for the origin of some UFOs. I tend to lean towards the extraterrestrial hypothesis myself, because I've been involved in investigating these things for a great number of years, and I just can't explain this phenomena by natural means. I've talked to Dr. Hynek, who is chairman of the Department of Astronomy at Northwestern University, who was the consultant for Project Blue Book for over 20 years. Mm-hmm. In fact, he came out here to Redlands to investigate that Redlands sighting, so I know him quite well. He is very convinced these things are real and probably extraterrestrial.
Dr. Philip Seff lived a long and fulfilling life. He is remembered by many as a brilliant scientist and a kind-hearted individual who dedicated his life to helping others. As the years went by, Dr. Seth's work continued to inspire others in the field, and his legacy lives on through the countless lives he has impacted. Despite his numerous achievements, Dr. Seth never lost sight of what was really important in life. He was a loving husband, a devoted father, and a true friend to many. And so, Dr. Philip Seth passed away, leaving behind a legacy that would inspire future generations for many years to come.